Buongiorno a tutti, mi chiamo Charlotte e oggi vi parlo della Pasqua. Pasqua. So this is actually something that's just happened. So we're talking about Easter. La Pasqua. Pasqua. So I'm going to be looking at a little bit of text, 2 paragraphs that I've taken from a website which I thought was pretty good, focusjunior.it. So there's a nice little kind of summary description of what Easter is and why it's celebrated. So we're going to look at that description. So that's come from that website. And what I've done is I've, as per usual, taken the verbs. This is slightly adapted, so there's some bits taken out. But if you go to that website, you'll see the original text that we're looking at and that I've adapted. So all the verbs that are in these 2 paragraphs are in red so that you can easily see they are verbs. They might be in their infinitive form, they might be conjugated, different tenses, blah, blah, blah. We have, in fact here we have a list, I verbi, all the verbs, and then we have I nomi, nouns, because there's quite a lot of useful ones here that pertain to religion, because this is a Christian festival, or like holiday, festival, yeah. And also we have quite a lot of useful nouns that pertain to, again, kind of religious stuff like church, Christmas, resurrection, original sin. And then we have some nice kind of nature, useful kind of practical but nature-based nouns like la luna, l'equinozio, etc. Okay, so they're quite useful. And we're going to look at what I've written out, which is this text on my whiteboard. Okay, so let me just check. I've got access to Word Reference in case I need it. Quite a useful thing to have. You can get a free app on your phone. I can't find my phone because I'm using it to actually record this. But you can get the Word Reference app, which is quite useful, like kind of dictionary, or kind of even you can use it as a thesaurus. There's a forum that you can like go on and like consult certain like linguistic structures or like phrases or whatever. It's really, really useful. So you can get that on your phone. But seeing as I'm using my phone, I am going to have to check any queries I have on my laptop over here. Okay, andiamo. So here's the text. I'll read it out. And then I'm sorry about the reflections, but again, this isn't my usual setup in my office. I'm not in my office. I don't have access to my normal office. So I'm having to just kind of, be adaptable. So let's read this out. In questa giornata i fedeli celebrano la risurrezione di Gesù Cristo. Gesù Cristo, che ha sconfitto la morte e ha salvato l'umanità dal peccato originale. Punto. Questa festività non ha una data fissa, come il Natale, ma per decisione della Chiesa cade la domenica successiva alla prima luna piena, dopo l'equinozio. It's a long old sentence, isn't it? So that's the first bit. That's actually the first kind of paragraph. Il giorno di Pasqua dipende dalla luna e può essere fissata tra i mesi di marzo e aprile. Hope you can see that there. Se cade a marzo o ai primi di aprile si dice che la Pasqua è bassa. Se invece cade ad aprile o trato si dice che è alta. Alta. Let me have a little look. Sì, ok. Inalterato, yeah, I was going to say. Inoltrato, yeah, I thought so. Just make sure that I've, yeah, inoltrato, yeah, sorry guys. I just missed out a little bit here, which was making me think, why doesn't that make sense to me? It's because I missed out 2 letters in a word. Inoltrato. Okay, right, excellent. Let's have a little look then. Sometimes I do that, you know, because I have to hand copy things and I miss things. And I think, what does that mean? But actually, if I look back to the text that I prepared, or this one, or the original website, if I'm, you know, borrowing something from a different source, but I always put the original, you know, like link there. So I like using, if I'm not writing the content myself for these lessons, then I like to find something, or I like to base it on something that my students or the viewers of this video can go and find themselves and then do some further investigation. That works quite well sometimes if the content is, say, like on Facebook, or, you know, is content that people can find themselves and then like investigate and even like contribute to, you know, just like real language. And luckily anything that's online is quite easy to find, but also easy to share and come back to. But sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes you go back to something and maybe the post has been removed. It doesn't tend to happen so much with websites like this. Anyway, so let's have a little look. There might be some words here which I find hard to translate into English. You kind of understand them, but you can't always find the right counterparts. So if I'm typing over there, I might be just sort of looking for, you know, a prompt for the right translation. So in questa giornata, so on this day, I fedeli, this is one of the words. So fedele with an E at the end, that's like an adjective. It means the faithful, believers, people who follow or believe in, like, you know, Christianity, for example. I'm going to find that word in word reference. If I put fedele, which is an adjective with an E at the end, yeah, faithful. Okay, I've got it now. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So even though fedele means faithful, as in fedele, scusa, could be a person who has faith. We in English wouldn't tend to say the faithful, generally. You might do, but there's other words you'd use instead. You'd use worshipper, or believer, or possibly follower. Okay, so there's a few different ways. That is the word I was struggling to translate, really, but that's only because I didn't go on word reference before. So if you're using the adjective fedele, normally it's just got an E at the end, but because this is a plural and it's referring to faithful people, we've got E in front of it. So fedeli here is essentially a noun, but it's based upon the adjective fedele. Okay, so fedele could describe a faithful or loyal person, servant, animal, anything, okay? But here, if we're talking specifically about people who are celebrating, as you'll see with this verb here, celebrating Easter, then we might say believers, or followers, or supporters, okay, worshippers even. It depends on the context and how religious you want it to be. Basically, people who are celebrating Easter. In questa giornata I fedeli celebrano, celebrare, so just like in English really, to celebrate, ARE verb, la risurrezione, like in English there's 2 R's in this, risurrezione, the resurrection, capital R here because it's referring to the resurrection of di Gesù Cristo, Jesus Christ, superstar, che ha sconfitto la morte. This is quite like dense with words that pertain to, as I've mentioned, religion, the Bible, Christianity, of course. So there's like words that you might come across in other contexts pertaining to religion, the Bible, Christ, that kind of stuff. So, che ha sconfitto, sconfiggere. So that's one of the verbs I've got on this list. To defeat. Okay, so there's like a sense of kind of battle, fighting. Okay, so to overcome, but with that kind of defeat sense. Sconfitto la morte. La morte is death. It's a word that a noun that has an E at the end. La morte. Il ristorante. La morte. So with these nouns that have an E at the end, you just have to kind of know whether it's il or la. Sometimes it'll be an L apostrophe, so you don't necessarily know whether it's a masculine or a feminine noun. But la morte is feminine. La morte, that's death. So he overcame death when he was resurrected, came back. E salvato, saved. Salvato, excuse me, salvare. Salvato is a past participle. L'umanità. L'umanità. So sometimes you get these little vowels with like Gesù, umanità, lunedì. You get vowels at the end of words, which not always at the end, mostly at the end, which have an accent that goes down like this. And then you put an emphasis on that. Umanità, humanity. So he saved humanity dal. Dal is da plus il. Da più il fa dal. Articulated or combined prepositions. So dal means from the. Peccato originale. When someone says, oh, oi peccato, you're saying it's a shame. Shame. E peccato. Well, that's a shame. So this is a similar word. Il peccato originale. You might be able to guess that if you're educated or if you're like un fedele, someone who's like who's a believer, worshipper. Il peccato originale, original sin. So let's have a look. On this day, the faithful celebrate, or believers celebrate, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or Jesus, who defeated death or overcame death and saved humanity from original sin. Okay, so originale comes after il peccato because it's generally the way adjectives generally follow the noun in Italian. Okay, sometimes they precede them, but generally they come after. Unlike in English where we would say original sin, old person, young girl, happy film, sad music, okay, generally. Questa festività, so this like holiday, festivity, right, it's like something to be celebrated. Non ha una data fissa. Doesn't have, non ha, it does not have, it has not. Una data fissa. Fissa, so that word fissa describes una data, so a fixed date. Fissa is a feminine singular form of fisso, and it agrees with a data. Una data fissa. So again, the adjective comes as per usual after the noun. So this holiday or festivity doesn't have a fixed date. Come il, like il Natale, like Christmas. Natale coming from like native, like the root of it is, to do with birth. Natal, okay, if you like. Ma, but, comma, per decisione della Chiesa, as decided by the church, la Chiesa with a capital C. So una Chiesa, la Chiesa is just a or the church. But if we're talking about like the institution of the church, then we've got a capital C. Chiesa, so CH makes a K sound, a hard K sound in Italian. So it doesn't have, so Easter doesn't have like a fixed date, a set date like Christmas does. but as chosen by the church, if you like, cade, it falls, that's from cadere. Cade la domenica, the Italian day of the week, which is a la, feminine domenica. Otherwise it's il lunedì, martedì, mercoledì, giovedì, venerdì, sabato. So that's la domenica. So falls on a Sunday, or successiva, the following, the one that follows, the following Sunday, or the Sunday following, alla prima luna piena, following the first full moon. La luna is the moon, the first moon full, first full moon. So here we've got two adjectives. Prima agrees with luna, la luna. Alla is a plus la, a combined or articulated pronoun again. A plus la equals alla. Okay, it's getting a bit smaller, isn't it? So because we've got prima, which is one of those common adjectives that can precede a noun, we've got alla prima luna piena, and then we've also got the word full after luna, so we've got an adjective before and after. Dopo, after l'equinozio di primavera. So I think that must be the 21st of March, spring equinox. L'equinozio di primavera. Primavera, another feminine noun, la primavera, so the spring. Primavera, l'estate, l'autunno, l'inverno. Okay, the stagioni. The stagioni. So the seasons. Right, let's have a look at that again. Questa festività non ha una data fissa. I'm sorry about the reflections. Hopefully you can still see this. Come il Natale. So it doesn't have a fixed date like Christmas does. Ma per decisione della Chiesa. Decisione is a feminine noun. La decisione, but it happens to end with an E, like la morte. As chosen by the church, cade la domenica successiva alla prima luna piena dopo l'equinozio di primavera. So instead of having a fixed date like Christmas, the church decided that Easter would fall on the Sunday following the first full moon after the equinox, the spring equinox, l'equinozio di primavera. L'equinozio is one of those nouns that starts with an L apostrophe because it starts with a vowel, equinozio. So instead of il equinozio or la equinozio, it's l'equinozio, L apostrophe. Di primavera, the spring equinox. Il giorno di Pasqua, Easter day, day of Easter, dipende from the verb dipendere, ERE verb, just like cade. So when you've got the third person singular conjugation in the present tense of an ERE verb, it's generally ends with an E. So instead of ending with an A, instead of ending with an A, it ends with an E. So dipende, it depends. It depends on, dipende da. So here we've got da plus la, which becomes dalla. Depends on la luna. Dipende dalla luna, scusa. Depends on the moon. E può essere fissata, and it can be, può is from potere, it can be, può essere, it can be, fissata. So again, it's got this sort of, fissata is the adjective describing Easter, la Pasqua. So it's agreeing with Easter being a feminine noun. So it's fissata as opposed to fissato. Tra I mesi di marzo, between the months of March and April. È aprile. Se cade, if it falls. So se is if, cade is from cadere. If it falls a marzo, in March, o ai primi di aprile, ai primi di aprile, or in the first few days of ai primi di aprile is in the first few days of April, early April. Si dice che, it is said that, si dice che, so when you've got si preceding for a third person singular nouns, verb, dire in the third person he or she form, dice, si dice, that means it is said. It is said, okay? That means it's like an impersonal structure. It is called, or people say. Si dice che la Pasqua è bassa. So, if it falls, remember the subject of this very long sentence is la Pasqua. Se cade a marzo o ai primi di aprile, if it falls in March or the early days of April, si dice che, it is said that la Pasqua è bassa. So I checked, I didn't know this, but I've checked. Anche in inglese si dice low Easter. Bassa is the feminine adjective, the feminine form of the adjective low. Bassa. I think of low, bass, boom, 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 boom. Okay, bass player, bass singer, bass voice. So basso, bassa. So it's a low Easter. Se invece, if instead, or if however, if rather, cade ad aprile, if it falls in April, in, oh, here's that word that I forgot or misspelled. Inoltrato, so later in April, further into April, late April, mid-April, later in April. Si dice che, it is said that, or it's called, è alta. Okay, la Pasqua è alta, high. So, basso, alto. Basso can mean low, or as in like low down, like height, or it could mean low, like in pitch. And then alto can mean high, or it can even mean tall if you're talking about something. Io sono molto alta. I'm very tall. Alta, because I'm a girl. So, or alta can also mean high as in pitch. So basso, bassa, alto, alta, depending. So these are adjectives. And the meaning in English can either be high or low, okay? Or tall and low, or short, I suppose. So, there you go. Let's have a look what we've got then. In questa giornata di Pasqua, i fedeli celebrano la risurrezione di Gesù Cristo che ha sconfitto la morte e salvato l'umanità dal peccato originale. Questa festività, there's another one of those little accents, grave accents over the A, umanità, festività, non ha una data fissa come il Natale, ma per decisione della Chiesa, la Chiesa with a big C, cade la domenica, falls on, so we don't say on Sunday, we just say la domenica, right? And it's inferred that that's the day upon which it falls. So you don't have su, we just say la domenica. Successiva alla prima luna piena dopo l'equinozio. Il giorno di Pasqua dipende dalla luna, scusa, il giorno di Pasqua dipende dalla luna e può essere fissata tra i mesi di marzo e aprile. So, the day upon which Easter is, or Easter itself, depends on the moon and can be fixed between, and can be placed, I guess, between the months of March and April. Se cade a marzo o ai primi di aprile, si dice che la Pasqua è bassa, basso. Se invece cade ad aprile inoltrato, si dice che è alta, high. It's quite a lot of stuff, isn't it? Right, so let's see if we can check some of the verbs and so, look over here, and some of the nouns. I won't go through everything because club members can do that themselves when they receive this handout later today. So let's have a look. Salvare is the verb to save. Celebrare is to celebrate. Potere, we had that. Può essere, so it can be. It's a modal verb, that is potere, to be able to or can. Cadere is to fall. So when you're conjugating that, like in combined tenses, like the past tense, il passato prossimo, you'll have to use, instead of ho caduto, you'll have to say sono caduta, I fell. So it's one of these verbs which is conjugated with essere as the auxiliary verb. Okay, and when a verb is conjugated with essere as the auxiliary verb, then you have to agree the past participle in number and gender with its subject or subjects. So io, per esempio, if I fell, being a lady, being a female, I would have to say sono caduta, okay, because caduto is the past participle of cadere, but I am a female. I'm female, so the gender of the subject is feminine, and so I have to change the ending caduto to caduta. Anyway, that's another thing. But if it was me and my friend, and it's a female friend, I'd say siamo, we, siamo cadute. So the ending would have an E because it agrees in number, two of us or more, and in the feminine with an E at the end. Worth looking into. Anyway, dipendere, to depend. Dipendere da, depends upon something. So followed by the preposition da. Dipendere da. Dipendere da. Aspetta. Just double check that. Dipendere da. Depend upon. Depend. As in, it hinges upon something. Just double check this. I'm checking the preposition that follows it because it does make sense. Dipendere da. Yeah. See, sometimes I check things and it's just worth checking. Yeah. So, dipendere, if something depends upon something, instead of saying dipende su, like in English you'd say depend on, so you might try and use the verb dipendere, once you've discovered that's the Italian version, and then follow it with the preposition su, because it's a bit like depend on in English. But instead we use the preposition da. So that's why we saw dipende dalla luna. It depends upon. Dipende dalla luna, okay? Not sulla luna. Dalla luna. It's just like it's just the way it is. Okay? È così. So, dipendere, to depend. Sconfiggere, to defeat, to overcome. Let me just see if there's a different way of translating that. That's a weird one, isn't it? Sconfiggere. Sconfiggere. Defeat, to beat. Oh, there's some good ones here. To crush, to overwhelm, to vanquish. Right? So it's a sense of competition, battle, opponents, adversaries, overcoming something, challenge, struggle. Okay? So that's quite a useful one. Well, it's very specific to the context. Dire, okay, dire is to say or to tell. Si dice, it's said, one says. It's the impersonal. So when you have that si, I don't think I mentioned this, when you have si and then a space in front of a third person singular conjugation, si dice, for example, that means one says. It's an impersonal structure. It means that even though the verb is conjugated in the third person singular generally, it's referring to what one says or what you say, what is said. There's a few ways of translating that into English. Sometimes the subject is you, or you don't say it like that, you say it like this. It isn't said like that, it's said like this. That's a sort of passive structure, but it's impersonal, right? It's talking about people in general say things like this. In Italian, you use the third person singular generally, and you conjugate the verb, and then you put si in front of it. Okay, si space. Like si dice. It's eccolo qua. Si dice che. So the example here is if Easter falls in March or at the beginning of April, si dice che la Pasqua è bassa. It is said that, or it is called low Easter. Se invece, if instead, cade ad aprile, it falls in later in April, ad aprile inoltrato, si dice, it is said, or it is called, si dice che è alta. It is said that it is high. High Easter. Okay, got one more verb here, sapere. I don't think sapere is actually in there because, I'll take that out. Is it in there? No. Because just before recording this, I took out a little extra bit to make the text that I was looking at a little bit smaller. So I'll take that out. Take it out. Okay. Let me give you, because I'm really into kind of celestial bodies and, you know, things with stars, moons and stuff. So I'm just going to look at some of the nouns now. La luna, that's the moon. La luna piena, piena is a full moon. L'equinozio is the equinox. There's like a summer and a winter equinox when the days are equal in length. Night and day is equal length. I think that's what it is. Oh, here's another one which is quite earthy. La primavera. That's spring. La primavera. Okay, here's a nice one, which is kind of, you know, it's a hopeful one to end on. La risurrezione. Risurrezione. Resurrection. Resurrection. Okay, guys, grazie mille. Thank you very much. I hope that's useful. I hope, you know, that's useful and that you could read what I was looking at, and that you've had a nice Easter, you know, whether or not you celebrate it. And oh, by the way, I had a very bad throat. Avevo molto mal di gola, which is why last week I wasn't able to record this. I've still got a bit of a bad throat. I'd almost basically lost my voice, which is why this video is a little bit late. So sorry about that delay, but thank you for your understanding as always. And ci vediamo la prossima volta. See you next time. Ciao. Grazie.